All right, so today we are going to have a discussion on what we call function writing. Function writing is very important because it introduces you to, to the formats, the styles, the tone of writing speeches, formal letters, emails, reports, and CVs. So we're going to look at some of these, how to write the speeches, the letters, and reports and CVs, and then we'll get another time to look at writing formal emails. So in this session, you should be able to know what functional writing is, what are its main features, the conventions of different types of functional tests, and then you should therefore be able to plan, draft, revise, and edit functional texts using appropriate language, tone, style, and format. So in functional writing, basically there is a particular or specific purpose and audience that you're writing to. So basically, you know whether you're writing a letter to your supervisor, or if you're writing a letter to the human resource manager, or you're writing it to the government authorities, or you're writing it to the NGO. So there is a specific purpose and audience that you're writing to. So it is quite different from what we call personal writing. Okay, why is it different? Is that in functional writing, we are usually perhaps providing specific information, passing particular instruction, or persuading people such that your message is shared, is understood, and then particular action is taken. Okay, so when you're writing, you have that aim in you. When you're writing, you are either writing to inform the person or persuading them to do something, or why something is better, or you're giving them options so that they can make an informed decision. So they come in different forms. You can write a report, you can write a memo, a letter, emails, proposals, manuals, instructions, resume. Okay, unlike the other type of writing, for example, the creative writing, for it, the focus is about you expressing yourself in person or in a personal manner, and it involves being very imaginative and expressive. Okay, but functional writing, there is a particular tone. You want to remain formal with a formal style of writing or presenting the information that you have. So, what are the key things that make up functional writing? Is that when you are a professional, you are perhaps groomed by training to communicate in a particular way because of your profession. So the language that you use matches your profession and context given. Okay, so as for example, as an engineer, there is a language that you're using. As a human resource, there is a language that you're using. As a health personnel, there is a language that you're using. Okay, but also as a health personnel, if you're writing as a health personnel to, let us say, an external organization, then you're going to write more in a business language than writing a highly um, a document or a letter that has a lot of medical terms. Yet the person who's going to receive the document is just is an executive director of an organization without medical background. So you should know who you're writing to and under what context, what are the circumstances around. Okay, so that means that you need to understand the person or the audience that you're writing to. Basically, your readership. Uh, who are those people who are going to read your document? Okay, it is always very important to remain as objective as possible in your writing, whether it is your report, whether it is your CV, whether it is your writing emails. Keep as much as possible to be objective. Don't over exaggerate. Don't be too subjective. Okay, and then your document should be well formatted uh, with the usual professional uh, conventions of writing. This one we basically mean that you should use the appropriate spacing between the lines, the appropriate font type, the appropriate font size, the appropriate margin. These are conventional things. These are things that people have been using to write. So you don't invent something that is completely out of the conventions of writing. With writing, for me as a person, I take writing as a future or as a skill that demonstrates how organized the person is, whether the person pays attention to detail or not. So writing demonstrates a lot about you as the person. So there are some basic rules that you really need to follow in your writing. Issues to do with punctuation, issues to do with grammar, issues to do with the spellings. These are very important. And if you fail to know that or to detect that your letters or your emails or your report has grammatical errors, spelling errors, poorly punctuated, this demonstrates the lack of one seriousness that you have, and therefore you could not be a good person to hire. So people actually make judgments about who you are based on how you write your CV, for example, how you write your application letter, how you write that email applying for a job, how you introduce yourself in written form. These are very, very important. Okay? It's always very important that you keep the focus on what you are writing about. Okay? Keep or maintain the contents pertinent to given question or purpose. So we are going to start with the formal letters, which can be called official letters or business letters. We write these letters for purposes of getting jobs, requesting for a service, offering an apology. We write these as we write or express our intent to collaborate or partner. Okay, these fall under what we call formal letters. Usually, they have to include the writer's address date, and then the addressees details in terms of their titles, their names, their title, the organization that they are working for, okay, and then the salutation. Thereafter followed by the subject, and then the main body and a complementary clause. That's what the formal letter has to be. What you see on your screen is what we call a letterhead. Okay? The letter is written on a letterhead. So organizations have what we call letterheads. These letterheads usually have the details about the organization. And so it can be Restore University, the website of Restore University, the email for Restore University, the phone numbers for Restore University, then the address. Okay, with the brand colors of the university. So you can write a formal letter on a letterhead. Okay, you can write a letter on a letterhead. So when you have a letterhead, then that means that you basically go direct to writing the date, and then the addresses details, that is the name, the organization, the address, and then you can proceed with the salutation, and then the subject, and then the body of the letter, and then the greetings, and then the salutation. I mean the greetings, and then the signature, and then your name, and then you can stamp it, and then seal it in an envelope and send to where you want to send it, or it can remain an electronic letter where you can put a signature electronically. We have applications that can add your signature onto an e-document or an e-formal letter, a formal letter in an electronic form or a soft copy. So when you're writing a formal letter, be as formal as possible and remain very respectful. Okay, even when you are offering counter arguments, even when you are disagreeing with somebody, you have to be respectful and use an appropriate tone. The the recipient's information, that we have actually talked about that, and then your own information, which can be covered in your letterhead. If you don't have a letterhead, then you should include your information, your name, your address, and then contact details, including the phone number and the email. The salutation, which usually is dear sir, or if you're not specific to who you're writing to, it can be to whom it may concern later. Okay, knowing people's titles is very important, and how their names are spelled. Okay, sometimes you may know, for example, you want to write to a particular person, and then you don't know the spelling of their names, or you don't know what titles they usually use. So you can find out from people who are close to that person, or you can call that very person, or you can use Google. You can Google the person's name. If they are very prominent people with the what we call digital footprints, or they're available on the internet. Some people have websites. Some people have formal names on their social media accounts, so you can always get those details. Or perhaps they have been mentioned in a news article, so you always cross-check those names and their titles if you don't know the person. You don't know their titles, you don't know how the arrangement of their names, things like that. So the subject line usually can includes the subject about what you're writing about. Okay, say it's either a request for an appointment, that's a subject line. It can be an application for a job position, that's a subject line. Sometimes you can leave it out. That's why we are having here that it is an optional bit. Okay, so after writing the subject line, then you are starting now the real content of your letter. You start with an introduction and the purpose of your letter. Sometimes it is good to introduce yourself, who you are. I am so and so, working for this organization as I'm writing to you to inquire about the order that we had placed. When will it be ready? Okay, so sometimes the introduction is clear, but if, for example, maybe you have been in touch with this organization or this person, then you may not start with I am so and so. No, you may say I hope you're well. I'm writing to you to inquire about the date for our meeting. Okay, so that is the introduction, small introduction, or can still go straight and say I am writing to you to follow up on the action points that we had agreed upon in the last meeting. Okay, short and precise, concise, clear. Okay, be as polite as possible. If you're going to write something lengthy, if you're going to write, if it is going to be a lengthy letter, then make sure that the sequence of the paragraphs in that letter is logical, logical flow of information. Make sure that the first paragraph is connect the second and then the third and things like that. Be as polite and courteous as possible. Remain professional throughout. Ensure that the message is clear and easy to understand. Punctuations say a lot about you. Punctuations, grammar, spelling, and then the closing, the formal closing, which usually can be sincerely, yours faithfully, respectfully, something like that. Those are the formal closing. And then you put your signature. If you've printed the letter, then you sign it with your pen. If you are not going to print it out, you can use an electronic signature. So we have a lot of apps that we can use for electronic signatures or digital signatures. We have both commercial and non-commercial softwares or programs for signatures. Okay, and then you can put enclosures if you have attached other documents. Okay, maybe you have the concept note, maybe the proposal. You can put a note that encloses the concept note, the MOU, and then the terms of reference, something like that. If you are going to send the same letter to different people, In an organization, you can put what you call the copy notation, the CC, carbon copy. This paper or these letters have gone to these other people. Okay, always ensure that the date is written and then it is well formatted. Formatting means organization. If you're writing on behalf of an organization, it means that your letter is going to be interpreted most cases at the reflection of how the organization is. So for example, if I represent an organization Restore Initiative and I'm writing a letter and that letter is not written professionally, it is not formatted, then it is a reflection that even the things that we do as an organization are disorganized. We are not organized as people. So make sure that the margins, the spacing, the font type are very, very much following the conventions of professional writing. If there is a reference number or a file number, please indicate it. This improves the retrieval. If you want to access that letter again, it's easy to retrieve it. Formal letters shouldn't be too long. Make sure that they are concise and to the point. When you write the letter, give it to other people to read through, to check errors, and then also you can proofread it yourself, but the trick is always make sure that after writing it, don't proofread it there and then. Give it time and then proofread it after some hours. Okay, and then the enclosures, like I said, you list them, courtesy copies, that the CC that we talked about, and then you can put the call to action, or what we are calling the follow-up. Mention any desired follow-up actions or responses from the recipient. And then the closing remarks, address on the envelope. Usually, if you don't have envelopes that are branded, then maybe we need to put your contacts on the envelope and make sure that there's correct information to where the letter is going, and there's also correct information about the recipient's address. Okay, and then choose the appropriate way to send that letter. Okay, it can be electronic, it can be physical. Okay, if there is need that the recipient responds back to you in a specific time frame, you can always add that. I've already talked about the letterheads earlier on. So that is to do with the formal letters. So we move to what we call the CV. Okay, which stands for the curriculum vitae. Basically, meaning that you putting information about your life, your course of life in a professional sense. So it gives a summary of your experience, skills, and education. Sometimes in the US and Canada, it can be called the resume. So the content usually is not very different, the resume and the CV. The CV is about you marketing yourself for a particular job position. So you need to demonstrate or showcase your skills, the expertise, and basically why you are suitable for a particular job. If your CV is not well written, could be extremely difficult for you to get interviews. So that means that your CV needs to be a very good one, a very good representation of who you are. You should use the CV to market yourself. Um, Personally, still, I will tell you this, and I've seen this with other people, that they make decisions on who to hire based on the level of organization in the CV. And of course, the experience and education level play a role. But preliminary decisions, I mean, um, when I receive uh, your documents will show me impression, will give me an impression of who you are. Okay, so that means that I will have an impression. It can be a negative or a positive impression. So before I read the details of your work, your CV, at least the first obvious thing, which is about formatting, spacing, spelling errors, and what, don't fail from that point. Okay, don't fail from that point. Make sure that you have highly organized CV. Highlight the relevant experiences, skills, and achievements. So, what do you need to really focus on? You need to present your experiences in a positive light. Okay, highlight the skills that you have learned and the lessons learned. Focus on the information that is relevant for a particular job. This is to say that you need to tailor your CV according to a particular job position that is available. You cannot have a generic CV for every job that comes out. Okay, so your job as, for example, a public health educator can be different from your job as a public health focusing on health promotion. It should be different. Okay, so you need to make sure that you really look at the job that you're applying for, and make sure that you have the information tailored appropriately. So the structuring is very important. Make sure that the important information appears first, and then you can have the information that may not be very pertinent for a job position to follow. Okay, very important to include experiences, skills, and interests. Achievements in terms of certifications, awards, and things like that. They're very important to include. Always use a positive language, and use language that portrays outcomes. With this, the emphasis is, for example, if you're a health promoter, it could be very important to structure your achievements in terms of, let us say, the number of health talks that you have held over through the radio, or articles that you have written, or audiences that you have reached. Okay, so the focus is basically on making sure that you have you show outcomes. In this generation, it is not really expected that you have a handwritten CV. Make sure that you have a typed CV, and then avoid showing stereotypes. Avoid showing stereotypes, or what you can call discriminatory information. You shouldn't show that kind of discriminatory attitude in your CV. Make sure that you stick to the most important details. Okay, don't include things that are not really very things that are not necessary. Okay, stick to the most important aspects. So here I am showing to you uh, uh, what an appealing layout of your CV can look like. I'm not saying this is the best, but this one is clearly showing that the formatting is okay. Uh, the, the the preference or the colors that you have there, fine. The texts are readable, so the margins are okay, things like that. So this is the an eye-catching layout. So it should be appealing. When someone gets your CV, they should really have an interest to read it, have a professional appearance. So layout is very, very important. Okay, so we have a lot of tools that you can use for making sure that you have good layouts for your CV. I think I will show them some of them to you later on. So the things that you don't need, the things that you really need to take care of, include one, always have another person to look through your CV. Okay, there was one time I asked someone to give me a CV, and then when I looked through the CV, I was like, no one can ever call you for a job if this is the CV that you have been using. The CV had a lot of information that is generic. Generic, with the word generic, I'm meaning that the information does not portray any technical skills that uh, you can deliver. Okay, it has things. I am easygoing. I'm good at communicating. I am very honest. These are things that everyone has. So that's why I'm calling them generic. They are starting points. But if you are a nurse, if you are a midwife, then you should tell me that you can manage a patient of sepsis. You can manage a breech delivery. Because these are technical skills that you need to showcase in your CV. But if you look at your CV and you get a senior core person, and then there's nothing that shows that you're a midwife or a nurse or a public health professional, and you have generic information, no one will hire you. So make sure that you get a second opinion on your CV. Let another person look at it. Be professional. Focus a lot on your professional know-how. Okay, your professional competencies. Avoid unnecessary information, because this unnecessary information will make your CV too long for nothing. You can't be a person who has 2 years of experience and you have 4 or 5 pages of a CV. No, it can't be. When you have 3 years of experience and your CV is more than 3 pages, that is not really appropriate. Okay, focus, like I said, your experience should focus on the things that are relevant to the job position. And this is very important. And even the way you arrange your experiences and how you point them out is very important. That's why we say the important things first. Communicate facts and findings in your CV. And then I think there's an error here. I've included information that is not very pertinent in this. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask before we go to the next part. Yes, Unzi.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Thank you for highlighting the specific on the CV, for highlighting on this, and it's so crucial. I want to inquire because sometimes back I saw the people when they are driving their CV, they start their address with their name. Now
Mm.
I don't know whether that's the right one or you start with the address of your place because I see them writing their name or the place of the address, they start there. And then the others who draw table, and then the others who put it in words form. I don't know if you can throw lights on those two areas. It helps us a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, one thing you should notice that with writing evolves. The meaning of this is that it keeps changing. The way we write is not the same. We have the traditional formal way of writing. We have the modern way of writing. As you can see in this example here, that the picture is there and then the name and then the profession. Uh, so in most cases, you will have the name appearing first in the modern setting. For most templates that you have, the name comes first and then the contact details. The one for tables, I think the one for tables is an outdated, not outdated way of doing things. I've not seen modern CVs that are using tables. No, they're not. It's no longer modern to use tables. All right, thank you. Another person? Okay, so if there are no questions, we go to the report writing part. Okay, so for example, you can go to the field and then you come back and you need to write a report about your field visit. Maybe you have gone to the field to do an assessment, so you need to write a report. Maybe the project is coming to an end, you need to write a report. We have what we call end of project report, midterm project reports, a lot of reports. So how do you really write them? So with the reports, there are findings that you want to communicate to particular people. You are either communicating to your supervisor, to your donors, to your regulators, to government authorities. So the audiences are quite many. The key things of a good report that it should be accurate, no exaggeration, it should remain as objective as possible. Don't put in your feelings. And then be complete. The report should contain all information that is actually needed. The usual rules of writing apply in terms of structure, in terms of logical flow, in terms of formatting, and also making sure that you don't just throw information there. The information should be engaging. When I get that report, I should want to feel to read the whole report to the end. Okay, so understand the audience that you're writing to because it will be the one to determine um, how technical you will be uh, and what style you actually use. And for what purpose are you actually writing this report? These are very, very important. If you're writing to a donor, it's different from writing to another organization which is basically partnering with you. Okay, so this you need to know the purpose for which you're writing the, the report. It will dictate on the content and the structuring of the report. So there are many reports. Like I've said, you can go to the field and conduct an assessment. So you need an assessment report. You may want a donor report. Okay, you may want to write a report about the project, whether it is at the start, inception report, that is at the start of the project, or you're writing a monitoring and evaluation report, or what you can call a progress report, feasibility report. Okay, very many types of reports. Of course, the purpose of the report is very important. If you're writing a report about gender-based violence in South Sudan, and you're writing it to policy makers, then you need to persuade. You are giving information, but as well as persuading them to enact policies or to devote resources to gender-based violence. So it all comes back to one point, that you see, when you're writing a report, know who you're writing it to and what is the end goal, or what is the purpose of this report. If you're writing an academic report, then you just know that it has to be detailed, highly detailed, with proper referencing and following the academic writing style, which I think Mr. Patrick will teach academic writing skills. So for any report, generally, the general structure is that there should be the title, who has written the report, and then some details about the report, the purpose, the institution, and then the date. And then the summary, the executive summary. The executive summary should be that about 1 or 2 pages, where if I read the executive summary, I may not have interest in reading the entire report. And then the introduction, methodology, and then the results. This is a typical one, the typical structure, but of course they can really differ. You can have basically the title page, then you move directly to the introduction, and then if there is methodology, you put, and then recommendation, conclusion, and things like that. So the structures can be different depending on what report you're writing. Discussion, conclusions, recommendation, and other necessary documentations that may be needed. So in the process of you writing, you need to have, you need to outline what you really want to write about, and then organize. It's important to have the outline first in your planning phase. Okay, you need to highlight the sections that the report will have. Okay, is it the introduction, and then the statement of the problem, and then the methodology, and then the findings, and then the discussion, recommendations, and then conclusion. So you need to outline these things first. Some of them you may eliminate, some you may match, and then see which idea, which structure fits the situation. So the planning is very, very important. It will give you how you can approach it, and it also may help in preventing the problem of what we call the writer's block. Sometimes you fail to start to write a report because your mind is blocked. So when you write out the structure, it helps in freeing your mind, and then all of a sudden you see yourself writing. So planning is very, very key. Put ideas in a rough way. If you have a rough paper, or if you're using your computer, put the main ideas in rough drafts, and then later on, at the stage of implementation, now you can start to really connect these ideas together. Okay, it is quite very hard for you to sit in an instant and then write each section in a comprehensive way. but it can help you if you have a section and then you put the key points in that section. So after some time, it is very easy to connect up the dots and write the paragraphs in that section. Make sure you provide good references, and this should be very accurate. The proofreading now comes in and after writing. You can give another person to read, or you can proofread yourself. But these days we have computer programs that can do proofreading for you. We have Grammarly, even Google Documents. I will show you later on how Google Documents can help you in proofreading and restructuring your work, and many others. So you have proofreading tools that can help you with grammar. In this generation, if you write things in a wrong way, it's poor spelling. When you have things that can help you make sure that you don't have these errors, we basically just refer to you as a lazy person. Okay, so if you send us your work with the uncoordinated sentences, poor spelling, the work is not coherent, there's no logical flow, then we just know you are just a lazy person. It's not because maybe you don't know what to do, you're just lazy. So now the final draft, which you have really structured, formatted, with the appropriate tone. If they are these days, if your work is sponsored with organizations, make sure that they have their logos there. Make sure it is neat. Okay, neat work. Produce neat work. We have words that don't portray meaning, and if you eliminate them, nothing changes. These are the ones we call redundant words. Make sure you eliminate them, remove them out, such that your report is very concise. So that is about reports. Any questions before we move to memos? So let's move to memos. So a memo is a document that is written for purposes of internal communication. So you are in an organization, and then the country director wants to communicate to all the staff. They can write a memo. You can call it an official memo, you can call it an internal memo. It has to be impersonal. This is basically the opposite of being personal, and objective. The person who's writing it, to who it is written to, and then the date, and then the subject. The thing should be present in a memo. So the memo should be concise, with the direct, the information should be very, very, very clear. What do you want to communicate? What do you want to do? What do you want the people who have received this information to do with the information? Okay, so that is a memo. You can also write letter reports. So, for example, you have done an activity in the community, and there are key things that you really want also to share with the community. You can write what we call a letter report. Okay, some reports are highly formal, others have a tone of informality in them. Okay, so we have what you call semi-formal reports. Okay, the key things still, they really apply throughout. Be as clear as possible. Don't make people make judgments about you in terms of how organized you are. That is issues to do with formatting, issues to do with spelling, issues to do with punctuation, referencing. These are all issues that demonstrate that you're organized. You might have heard of what we call the KISS principle. Keep it short and sweet. Short and sweet. I remember one time I wrote a concept note of only one page. One page. It was not even a full page. It was half a page. I wrote it to a university, and immediately I got a meeting with the university in the afternoon. And by the following day, we already had a memorandum of understanding with the university. Short is better. No one should never lie to you that the more you write, the more it portrays that you are very smart. Keep it short and sweet. That is the KISS principle with the writing in a formal environment. Avoid emotions, and then avoid what you call double negatives. And I will show you how you can really avoid these things in this current era at the end of this presentation. This is one of the things that disturbs me. If you are going to complete your bachelor's degree at Bristol and you don't know how to write minutes, I feel like chasing you away. If you're a graduate, you should know how to write minutes. Very organized minutes. Minutes are very important because they can be used for many purposes. You can use minutes for research. You can use minutes for in the courts of law if you are being challenged. If your organization is being challenged in the courts of law, that you made a decision that was not appropriate as an organization. How was that decision? That decision was reached when you didn't consult us. If you don't have minutes for how that decision was reached, then it is very possible that the court case can be against you. So minutes are legal documents. They should be very authentic. Okay? And also again, in this generation, we have minute templates. Okay? The most common problem with the people in how to write minutes is they don't really know what to write. It's a problem. But the key things are what decision was made in the meeting and who is supposed to implement some of the decisions that have been made, and what is the timeline for which the implementation is supposed to have been done. Those are the key things. If you capture those things, then you have written very good minutes. Okay? So make sure that you really practice how to write minutes. The minutes are very, very, very important because they can safeguard the organization, they can protect the staff, they can be used for M&E, monitoring and evaluation, if you didn't know. If you want to look at how many meetings were held, what decisions were made during the meetings, how did the decisions help improve the implementation of the program. So the minutes are very, very important. Before the meeting, if you're going to be the secretary, make sure that you have the tools that you need. You need to have the tools that you need to do the minutes taking. Whether it is a notebook, whether it is a phone, whether it is a laptop, get these tools ready. As you know that you are the scribe or the secretary for the meeting, but you enter the meeting room without these things. And then you start fidgeting around, and your bosses are waiting for you to get organized such that you can write things like that. So during the meeting, you can use the different tools. Minute taking should not be a very difficult task if you know how to use your tools. We have we now have tools that can take minutes for you. You basically just need to know how to use these tools, and perhaps I will show you some of these tools later on. Okay. So after the meeting, of course, you as an organization, if you don't have a template for minute taking, then it could be very important that you create it. Template. Like for example, you see this. This is a good template. It has the date. It has those who are attending, the updates, the agenda, the items, okay, and then the final announcements or remarks. And it is on a headed paper, the paper for the organization. Okay, so you can have templates. If you don't have, you basically need to create those templates. Okay, after the meeting, make sure that usually the chairperson of the meeting will call you to read through the minutes that you have taken. It could be very important that you actually circulate these meetings, these minutes, for people to read through. I sat in one of the meetings, which I now regret why we didn't take minutes. Those minutes could have been extremely very important. We had a meeting with one of the ministers in the country. We conversed, and we had resolutions. For us, we wrote in our notebooks. And then the meeting ended, and that was it. Later on, we discovered that we actually needed to have these minutes. And if we really signed and on our minutes, those minutes would have taken us very far. Okay, so minutes are very, 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 very important. So the people who are there ought to sign. They ought to sign that they have been present. That attendance list is highly important, because we'll never know when to use it. So if you have the template will include all that information, just as we have seen. Be very clear about the meeting purpose, the key items for discussion, who are those people who have attended, and these days we have people who attend remotely. Make sure you include them too. Capture the key action points and focus on them. Who will take action? When are they supposed to report back? What resources do they need? And what are the key reporting structure? Who reports to who for that action that you are actually undertaking? That's very important. Being organized is a level of professionalism. Being organized is a level of professionalism. I'm just remembering one person who came for an interview in a shirt that was unironed. It was actually a t-shirt. Coming for an interview in a t-shirt, it shows lack of organization. That was the first impression I had. And indeed, when I interviewed the person was highly unprofessional and highly unprepared, highly incompetent. So you maintain good minutes means that you organize as a person, you're highly professional, using the right tone, and you're respectful. Always edit and proofread your work. Okay? People should read through the minutes. After the meeting, you can share the minutes with them by email or even print them out. There we go. Any questions? People are quiet.
I can ask one.
Yes, please.
Yes. This Mina template, I think this lesson is so interesting, and it has challenged some of us. who used to write minutes for other meetings.
Mm.
Uh, that I see people use it, and then there are some who still use the old format, including myself. And
Mm.
the format you have here is it is appearing, but it's not so clear. I don't know whether there's another one where it is so clear.
The what? The appearance of this template.
Yes,
Mm. Let me check it. Where was it? Here. Yes.
yes,
It's a small document. I just made sure that I squeeze it here. The key things that should be there, the the date, those who have attended, the agenda, the action points. Usually, if there's updates, there are updates from the chair or updates from the previous meeting. You need to include them. You can always change them, change this template as needed. What what usually makes meetings not productive or effective is you when you have another meeting and that meeting does not follow up on the previous meeting that you had. The first thing is you need to review last meeting's minutes, which is basically here the updates. So and so was supposed to write a letter to the commission. Did you write the letter? Yes. I did not write it. Then the person provides an explanation, and then that means that the action point now therefore has to come in. There is also an issue to do with resolutions. Uh, Here we don't, in this template, there is no provision for resolution. For example, you can make a decision in a meeting and there is no need for follow-up. So that does not become an action point. An action point is where you have said, please make sure that you submit the report for the project next week. That is an action point. But a resolution can be that all reports should always be submitted by email. That's the resolution that has been made. So the template should have a section for resolution. Or it can be where you have the final announcements. But you can always have it as a meeting resolution. Okay? All right, so we move to the other, which is speeches. Speeches. Speeches are very important. Speeches motivate. Speeches provide direction for the organization. Speeches make sure that people are actually focused. Speeches can enable you win support. Speeches can enable you get donations. Speeches. So speech writing becomes very, very important. We have this attitude of, I don't need to write a speech. And especially us Africans, we don't take speech writing very seriously. But you will see that whites take speech writing very important. It is very possible for you to specialize in speech writing and you become a specialist, a highly paid profession. But I don't think that is a career that you can choose in African setting. So we don't really take speech writing very important. The speeches that are quite important, I think, in our context are the ones for the president. But at professional level, speeches are very important. When the donor visits your field site, they will call you as one of the staff to give a speech on behalf of the other staff and beneficiaries. Now you will see people fidgeting there. You can be extremely very good at technical work. You know your nursing, you know your procurement, you know your business, human resource management. Extremely very good. And everyone trusts you. But out of nowhere, you have a meeting, and then you say, one of our staff can give a. You even realize this kind of mess when you're having what we call farewell parties. Hmm? When you're going to give a farewell speech, how are you going to give it? You see people fidgeting. So it means that speech writing and giving out speeches is actually very important. We give it in several settings, social settings. When you have a clan meeting, you're having a family meeting, when you are visiting an organization, when you go for a parents' meeting at school, then you're asked to give a speech as one of the parents. So speech writing or giving speeches, it's very, very important skill that you really need to have. Very important. So what are the key things that you really need to take note? I will not go into each and every slide like I've been doing previously. I will use random examples to demonstrate how important you need to master the techniques of giving a good speech. If you're talking about speeches, the personalities that come to your mind when you talk about speeches, they should obviously include Martin Luther King Jr., they should include Barack Obama, they should include Patrice Lumumba. I think also Julius Nyerere was good people in giving speeches. Coming to our neighbors, I think in Uganda, you have very good people at giving speeches. I think Norbert Mao is one of those. Norbert Mao. There is a son of the president. I don't know how we can grade his speech giving abilities, but there is a complete contrast. So what makes someone extremely good at giving speeches? That person should arouse interest in the audience. The audience determines actually. You need to move the audience. If you're speaking, everyone pays attention and wants to listen to you more and more. So that means that you really need to know what interests the audience and how you can raise them off the ground. And then move along with you, giving, you mix figures, mix stories, mix humor. Be relaxed, good at non-verbal communication, demonstrating charisma. These all things come when you really practice, and when you are rich in vocabulary. When you're rich in vocabulary, it means that you don't need to have limited words to really express yourself. So the format of a good speech should have the introduction, the body, and then escalate the conclusion. The key thing that I want really to emphasize is the protocol. For example, what is very common in our context is the organization has built a borehole, and that borehole needs to be handed over to the governor. So it means that you really need to know the protocol. Uh, Within your organization, within the partner organizations, and then within the government, up to the local authorities. Very, very important. There is a story of a ceremony which was organized by an NGO. That NGO had constructed, I think, a building, and it was time for handover. The journalists were called, the occasion was ongoing. Then, of course, as usual, the politicians usually take the position of being an MC because there was a minister. So the MC did not know the organization that implemented the project, was instead talking about another different organization. The leaders or the managers of that organization were really, they got angered. It was out of place. How do you fail to know the organization that has implemented the project? They have spent a lot of their money, and on that day they want to have that visibility. You have the media around, and then you, the MC, you're introducing another organization. So protocol is very, very important, but also knowing small details, paying attention to details is very key. So if you're going to be an MC in an occasion, you may not really be going to give a speech, but you really need to know the protocol. Okay, you need to know the protocol in that organization. So dignitaries, ambassadors, you need to know their titles. You need to know their names. And these days, you can't say I don't know how to pronounce a name. If you don't know how to pronounce the name, you get the spelling of that name, put it in Google, and then add the word pronunciation. Just with one click, you will get the pronunciation of that name, such that you don't embarrass yourself. So protocol, the first part, and then the body of the speech. The key thing is that make sure that the key things that you're going to talk about are logical. They connect with the audience. Be as audible as possible if you're the one giving it. But in your writing, everything should be very clear. You should know how paragraphs are going to be sequenced and how they can be linked to one another. Punctuation, grammar, spelling are very important. And then the person who is going to give the speech should actually also go through the speech over and over again, practice the speech. And then the last part is basically about concluding. Okay? All right. I think we end there for today. I will not go through how you can write a business plan. I think it is the last section. Thank you for listening.